But first, what are we to make of that wild interview Kamala Harris did with Fox News' Bret Baier? I mean, look, I would call it a train wreck, except for the fact that in a train wreck, something actually happens. But rather than dispelling the widely held belief that she is an intellectual lightweight who cruised through the Biden administration and doesn't have anything more than a soft progressive waffle behind her, the interview confirmed it. Rather than answering tough but fair and entirely expected questions, all we got were stock standard answers and deflections, a steamroller of words designed to chew up the clock while avoiding saying anything incriminating. Because if you think about it, on everything from the border to Iran to the direction of the country, Harris is in a pretty uncomfortable position. She can't take ownership of her administration's record, so she's got to deflect. Which is why Kamala Harris treated the Fox News sit-down almost like she was a mobster being hauled in by the cops. You know, give them nothing and they got nothing. Actually, though, we did get one thing out of Harris. We got out the fact that Kamala Harris really doesn't like Donald Trump. And she thinks you should join her in her hate because it's easier than thinking about her record. Asked about pretty much anything that's gone wrong in America, well, that was her answer. Blame Donald Trump. Even though it has been Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats who have been in power for, well, nearly 4 years. But beyond that, there was no there. Just a candidate very carefully picking her way through a minefield, blocking every question and trying to run out the clock without making a gaffe that would reveal her as a completely empty suit. Now, there's a million examples of this, but check out this exchange when Harris was asked about whether she ever noticed Joe Biden's mental decline. And take a moment to appreciate the pause after the question as she tries to figure out what to say.
You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions.
And poor Bret Baier tried to get a straight answer, but no, ultimately, the only answer was Trump.
You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump.
It was the same thing when he asked what Harris meant by turning the page. When she's been in office, when she's been the one in office for the past nearly 4 years.
Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years, so what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we have been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country.
That's the problem. It's that dastardly Trump and his rhetoric. That's why food prices are so high and it costs a fortune to fill up your tank. Meanwhile, foreign policy, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, don't blame Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their continuation of Obama-era deals that enriched Iran and put them on the road to a nuclear weapon. No. Again, the real problem, Kamala Harris told us, is Donald Trump.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
This may have been my favorite moment, though, when Baier asked Harris why Americans thought the country was on the wrong track after nearly 4 years of a Democrat White House with her in the number 2 role. Now, you'll never guess who's really responsible.
Tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen.
That's right. The real problem, Donald Trump. And how brutal was it when Baer said, no, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, it's almost like there's some sort of perverse genius at work here. I mean, imagine if in our own lives we could all do like Kamala. The next time a cop pulls you over and accuses you of speeding, say, hey, America is sick of Donald Trump's rhetoric. If asked by your significant other why you didn't mow the lawn or unpack the dishwasher, just say, it's time to turn the page. But there's a darker side on this, too. By the end of the interview, I was wondering where had I heard some of this before. And in terms of tone and everything, I realized that Kamala Harris kind of sees herself as the big brother character in George Orwell's 1984. Or rather, in this case, Big Sister. Big Brother, of course, maintained power by whipping up the masses into an irrational hate against the enemy, personified by Emmanuel Goldstein. For Harris and the Democrats, their hate figure, the man they blame everything on as a way to justify their totalitarian leanings and economic failings, is, of course, Donald Trump.